All right, so we're gonna do a little roundtable here on some leadership and mentorship, and the categories that we're gonna work towards are coach to athlete, athlete to athlete, and coach to coach. So those are the three categories that we'll be working towards, and each one of us is gonna give a couple points, and we'll kind of chat about each one as we go. Um, we'll start with Mr. Kanan here. He's gonna start with athlete to athlete, or what are you gonna start with?
Yeah, athlete to athlete. I think for me, when I think about athlete to athlete, the thing that really stands out is trying to have our student athletes be respectful leaders. I really encourage them to help us hold the other players in their group accountable. So for me, a big thing is shooting pucks after the whistle. I really want them to be dialed in and not putting the coaches and themselves in a dangerous position where half of them are taking a break and not being as aware, and then the other half are firing some extra shots. So that's something that obviously is on us to, hold them accountable and to stay on top of. But at the same time, I think it's something that the players can really help us with, and I really encourage them to do that. And after we talk about that, I think a couple key points are, I want them to say it respectfully. I don't want them to be condescending, getting mad at their fellow group mates. I want them to learn how to say it, in a respectful way, and deliver that message as a captain would, and be as mindful of that as they can. And then the last point there is, I think it's really important that if you're going to be a guy or girl who's holding other people accountable, you want to try to balance it out with also being encouraging. So if you're gonna, get on someone because they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing, make sure that you also spend some time congratulating them when they do something well, and being supportive. And I think that really helps, open up someone's mind, and makes them a lot more receptive if it's not always just giving them the negative feedback, but making sure you give them the positive feedback as well.
Nice.
Yeah, I can actually piggyback off that and just what you ended with. Actually, we had an experience this morning where we had to talk to our group a little bit of how do we talk to each other on the bench. And I think in hockey, the stigma, and we like having fun and we chirp each other, it's all in good fun, but there's that delicate balance, and that's a discussion. I think somebody didn't cross the line, but it could have gotten to the opportunity or to that area, and so we addressed it. And once you talk to these students and they understand, there's a better way to talk to each other. I think our days go a lot smoother. So we're pretty good at that. We have some great students here, obviously, but just for athlete to athlete, to make sure that we're getting them revamped back to their core values and what we experience and what we preach here at Vimy. Not so much preach, but our staff leads by example. I find that being super important, and our athletes see that every day.
Just the small things like putting sticks in stick bags, loading the bus, different things like that. You sort of see different people take initiative as the year goes on. So there's kids that you don't expect to step up in that way, but eventually they see others do it enough that they step into that role and kind of grow into sort of a leadership role. So I think as long as you keep pushing them in that direction, and kind of just allowing them to grow as leaders and take on different roles, I think it's fun to watch them grow that way.
Go ahead, Cecil.
As being here for a while, what I tend to look for too in that athlete to athlete role is, what do we envision these kids to be 5-10 years down the road, right? Not just in the particular here and now, right? So I try to develop them into being a young adult. What you do on the ice, will that translate off the ice, like for success, right? So what I try to do is I take my own experiences, and hopefully I can push my own experiences onto kids to be this type of person, be this kind of person that's going to make you successful off the ice too, because you got to work hard on the ice, you got to work hard off the ice. I also like our kids too. I always try to see who goes with who, like who's that leader, who's that kind of alpha dog where people follow. Does that alpha dog now branch out to people that maybe are a little shy, right? Or maybe they don't have that partner, right? So those are the kind of things that you're trying to mold into these kids too, to help other people out, help them thrive, and help them excel, even though that you may be at the top of the pyramid, or you foresee yourself at the top of the pyramid, right? It's like, okay, if that's what you see yourself as, what does a leader entail to you, right? And when you're looking at athlete to athlete, do you look at them straight across? Do you look at them down? Do you look at them above you, right? So there's a lot of components that I really do look at on the ice as you know, as being the actual leader on the ice, and then trying to translate that into kids that are at a younger age of, you know what, taking that leadership and maybe molding a little bit of what, like I told you, as I said before, of what I've learned and what I've done to help these kids be, you know, a little more successful.
Yeah, so I thought about this as an athlete to athlete. I thought about this as kind of how like taking my experiences as a captain, and how would I approach other athletes? How would I approach other players? Like, it's always about like example, leading by example, but it's also about a time and a place. So, for instance, like what Sean said, there's a way to kind of go about talking to your teammate and your peer, and so doing that, you got to make sure you're doing it the right way. But there's also a time where, and this would be with older kids, that you have the opportunity to take your teammate aside and have a little chat with them. Just say, hey, how is this going to make yourself better? How's this going to make the team better? An opportunity like that doesn't come up very often, but I think with an older kids, there's an opportunity for us to do that. And you're also looking for characteristics of kids. There's kids that will take the leadership role and take it seriously, and there's kids that really don't want it. And so you gotta, to what Stacy said, you gotta take those kids and notice them and understand that they're capable of it, and then foster that with your own kind of hints and ideas, making sure that they understand that.
Yeah. If you score, even if you don't score, even if you don't score.
I need to give you a dirty pass. I'll give you a dirty pass. Just find open,
Colin, go for the puck again.
just find open space.
Good pass.
Breakout. Trace one down, gave me a sweet pass. I scored. We got a 2-on-1, and then we almost scored, but didn't.
Next, we'll go to coach to athlete. Sure. I got some stuff written down here. I think coach to athlete, a big part of it is kind of building that relationship. How do you build a relationship? Well, there's got to be a trust factor, and there's got to be an openness to understand them as a person outside of hockey. So I think a very, very important thing is to maybe ask them some personal questions about their personal lives, stuff outside the hockey. Know that that you care about them outside the game of hockey, and that way that goes a long way of building that rapport with them. And we do a great job of that at the dock and outside of hockey, making sure that I think the dock after school is a great time for you to kind of hit those kids with some questions. Hey, what are you doing this weekend? Hey, how'd your team do? Or do you have a brother or sister? Like, just ask some kind of personal questions. And then when you build that trust, you're able to kind of get really far with them as far as building some rapport with them.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
Go ahead, Sean.
I totally agree. I mean, those are awesome points. The thing that stands out to me for coach to athlete is trying to empower the student athletes on the ice to, be part of the coaching. Sometimes it's a lens that they haven't really spent a lot of time looking through at a young age, but it's something that I really try to do when I bring them in on to the board or on one knee, is just give them the rough idea of the drill, but then ask them, why is this a skill that we want to know? How's it going to benefit you in a game context? And then break it down a little bit further and typically try to ask for, them to raise their hands and get the first 3 key points as to why this is a skill that we, should spend some time working on. I think it helps them just engage a little bit more. I mean, these are obviously busy kids, and sometimes, you're just going to have better sessions than others. And it just allows them to be active participants in that, first stage of getting into the drill before there's any demonstration. And I just find it, allows them to feel a little bit more confident too with what's coming up. And they just seem to have a better idea of why we're doing it more than anything. And then obviously trying to be aware of if it's the same kind of 3 kids always raising their hands to make sure that, try to balance it out and get as many participating in that process as possible.
For myself and also Brennan, we got a wide range. We deal with Donnan, we deal with our junior highs and our high schools. So for me, just kind of piggybacking again off what you said, Nathan, there's a wide range of ages, wide range of skills. So identifying with that individual what they need to or what they need to improve on, recognize that, and formulate a recipe to get them to their highest ability. Not every day they're all there, but bringing the mentals and the work ethic, it seems to translate into some really good things. One thing that's worked for me, recognizing that Coach Stacy, times of the year, we're sitting at a time of the year where most players are done. Had a great year. Some can be discouraged, so it's a tough task to get them motivated, especially in these last weeks leading up to spring break. There are ways to do that, which I found out by working with you guys the last year and a half, which I've really noticed a big difference, especially this time last year versus this year. So, yeah.
I think the biggest thing that helps me in this position is having gone here for however many years I was here, from grade 6 to 12.
16.
16 years. Yeah.
Grade 14.
But just like understanding that a lot of kids come here just to have fun, be here with friends, and then there's a group who is competitive and wants to get better. So I'm obviously not much of a hard ass. I'm pretty easygoing, and I tell the kids that. But I also say that with the sense of if you take advantage of that, then fun times are over. We're not playing games. We're not having fun. We're doing just drills that we need to get done. So, yeah, but the building relationships with the kids is probably the funnest part about working here. Especially just resolving conflicts. I actually enjoy that part because when you're dealing with 2 grade 8s that don't like each other, I just like to picture them after they graduate. Like, you're likely going to be friends. Like, let's just squash whatever's going on. You're probably going to be hanging out with each other for the next 30 years, right? Like, my best friends from Vimy are still my best friends. So, yeah, just creating that open environment and trying not to be too hard on them, but understanding that they need to also understand they're at school still, and yeah, blending those two.
Excellent. Coach to athlete. This is always a good one for me because I'm a rule. These guys all know I'm a rules oriented guy, right? I there's a line that kids need to follow, right? And that's the line I want them to follow. But I'm also that kind of guy too that is pretty easygoing once kids get to know me. So I've learned a lot over the years that I've been here that you got to open yourself up a little bit to kids, right? You can't have all the layers on there so they don't get to know you. Because once I found out, once they do get to know you and they can joke around a little bit with you, sometimes you just get a little bit more out of kids, right? And what I find coach to athlete for me as coaching in the club world too is like kids succeeding, right? You helping a kid on the ice, the kid coming to you next week and saying, you know what, that drill we did actually helped me on the ice in the game, right? I take a lot of great pride in that. And I take a lot of joy in seeing a kid like, I'm developing, I'm working on my skills here, and it's great, that you're helping me out. And it's kind of funny because there's sometimes in a day, you're just learning from a kid, from that coach to athlete. You don't even realize it. By the end of the session, you're like, man, I actually learned something from that guy.
Athlete to coach.
Athlete, right?
Oh.
So it's, and it's great to see, right? And it's, like I said, it's very rewarding to see. Because like you said, every day here at Vimy, when we're on the ice, kids, you're never always going to go 100%. It's impossible when we're on the ice 100 times in a year, right? So to try to get the best out of them, and them being able to lean on you and trust you, right? And just want to go out there and even just work hard for themselves and learn and develop. But also, you know what? I like this coach, right? He gives a lot. He trusts me a lot, and I want to give a lot back to him. So it's nice to see that that piece of it coming back to the coach. It's nice to see the relationships too off the ice, like Denver, like you said, you build off like that's when I find it at the dock at the end of the day where you can really start to build those relationships with kids, right? Because that's kind of your fun time where you can just joke around a little bit with them, and they also see that other side of, oh, that's, as they call me, Mr. Stacy, right? Even though that is not my last name, but it's a little bit, that's where you build that relationship off the ice, and then before you know it, it's translating onto the ice, and those kids are having a little bit of fun with you, but they know when not to cross the line and where that line actually is, and when it's time to get down to work, kids are they're fairly resilient that way, and they put in their effort, and I'm always a guy that. I'm always a person that, you might not go 100% every day, but there's certain things that you can be on point with, whether it comes to passing, whether it comes to the routes that you're doing, right? You might not be out there like going 1,000 miles an hour, but there still are some things from that, that coach to athlete that those kids are definitely can be on point at, So it's very, like I said, it's very rewarding. It's very, I don't think we would do what we do if we didn't like dealing with kids.
I really like the fact that all you guys take very seriously getting to know every kid's name.
Yep.
Like we got 250 kids in our program. There's a lot of names to remember. You guys all take it very seriously to know their names, and you don't understand what that means to them.
Right.
To know that they know that you know their names, even though maybe you've been with them
Yep.
like 2 months ago or something, or haven't been with their group yet.
Right.
Like that's something that I think that goes a long way with them.
Right. And sometimes it might take us 2 months to learn that name.
Oh, for
But
sure.
we all know that name.
Yeah,
and-
exactly. By the end of the year,
John
you
might be called John about 4 times, but he's
Well,
not John.
by spring league week. I mean,
Yep.
you guys all know everybody's name.
Yeah,
Well, I
exactly.
think that falls into we show up for them, they're going to show up for us,
Yeah.
right? So you put in that little extra work, well, they're going to do it too. That's leading by example, right? And I love the point where you said, Stacey, of learning off our athletes.
Yeah.
So true. Every other day there's something, if not every day. So
Right.
I really like that.
Yeah.
On that last one, does the guy who makes the pass from there start the next drill?
Yeah, so he's gonna step out, they're gonna exchange pucks.
Yep.
And as this player's stepping out, they're gonna make the pass.
Yep.
And now they're starting the drill the other way. That's what makes it continuous.
Okay, sounds good.
We'll go to coach. I'll just quickly start. I think for me as a coach, as a program director, you have to be very humble as a coach. You have to be humble, and you have to be able to take opinions without being upset or offended by it. So I think that for me, having these guys around and being able to be humble and learning and not knowing that I'm not the smartest guy in the room is a big part of it. And just taking that and learning from all you guys.
But I'll just piggyback quickly on that. Like for a lot of people that don't know Nathan, like he's the day I walked in here, man. The guy, you've been great. Like you said, he's the most even. You're the most even keeled guy because there are days that you could snap probably, right? But he understands his role as being that leader, even towards us. And we really appreciate it. He doesn't micromanage. He lets us do what we need to do, right? And we feel worthy and respected in that. He will talk to us if he needs to talk to us, right? But he's got the respect of us, which is great to see as a leader, right? And like I said, I've been with Nathan for about 8 years now, and he's just so humble in what he does, and it just makes coming to work, so much enjoyable. It's so enjoyable. Like, your boss is like our peer, and you know what, you can joke around with him, you can give him a hard time, right? But he's always humble, and even when he's having a bad day, right, he just seems to be that humble guy, and he deals with things like in a professional way that probably a lot of us, even myself, probably couldn't deal with.
Such well said. I'll keep going. Yeah, for me, coming in, this is my second year. Last year, coming in, was unsure. I did my homework on what to expect. So I thought I was prepared, but still, I can't talk about this enough. That first week without the students, it felt like it was a family already. Now, not knowing anybody, introducing Nathan, Stacy, Jeff, everybody else within our AAD staff, along with our teachers as well, was super welcoming. And that made me feel comfortable. able to perform at my highest ability. But I think being a student of the game is something I've always wanted to do, especially getting into coaching. Every day I love to learn. And being in an office with all you guys with all different backgrounds, Nathan playing in the NHL, could talk to you days and ask you questions. But again, you could walk in that office, you wouldn't know that Mr. Dempsey played in the NHL. It's just, he's the most humble guy around. And we're all learning from it day in, day out. There are days that we could all probably grip a stick a little tighter, but when our boss and our leader is doing that day in, day out, okay, just take a deep breath and you move on, onwards and upwards, right? So from coach to coach at Vimy as well, Stacy and I are coach outside of hockey, but specifically in Vimy, there's a couple ins and outs, just little details where we're at the rink, we're loading sticks, that he really helped me out with last year. I was able to, I felt, come in here and not look like the green guy and be able to kind of make it appear that I've been here for a little while. So can't thank you guys enough. And again, every day it's really fun coming to work with you guys.
Just to build off what Josh was saying, being in my first year here, same sort of thing going over the summer, was really excited to start the year here, but at the same time, just wasn't totally sure what to expect. For me personally, I'd spent the last 3 years basically running sessions completely on my own. And everybody I talk to who's asking me how Vimy's going, I just can't tell them enough how awesome it is to be back in a team environment and to have great people around. And like Josh was saying, it's not just the hockey guys here, it's everybody else that we have in the office. And it's just a tight-knit, great group of people. When we get to go and do our events together, like the disc golf that we did earlier in September with Boosh, and whatever it is, or even just walking in the morning and, you know, having everybody saying good morning and being able to give and get those. And yeah, I just personally really missed that. I didn't realize how much I missed it. Having played team sports my whole life, it was something that I really enjoyed, but you know, until you kind of get it back, you just maybe don't realize how important it is to you. So just some finer points on that, like, we do a tremendous job of supporting each other, and we all have a growth mindset. And if there's something, you know, feedback that comes from any one of us, everyone has an open mind to listening to it and taking it and trying to make themselves better. But, you know, if someone's sick, we cover, right? Like that, it's just, we have each other's back. We have each other's back, and it's just great to see. Again, it makes you feel like you're playing again, which is pretty cool. So, yeah, and then just one other point I had noted here is, you know, for me personally, I've really enjoyed also being on the ice with the support staff and the teachers. You know, they're out there to help us. We come in with the plan and need to, you know, take the bull by the horns. But especially the last few months, I've really tried to make a point of explaining a drill and then making sure I don't forget to ask them if they have anything to add. And it's kind of the same line of thinking as with the students. You know, I can't think of everything, and there's very often some really good points that come from the teachers and the support staff. And, you know, if I'm not racing around trying to set pylons up for them while they're doing that, like, I'm trying to make sure I listen to those and include them the next time that I run that drill. So you never know who and when you can learn something new. And I think that's one of the coolest things about, you know, this group is we all have that growth mindset.
Me, I just steal. I steal as much as I can from all four of these guys. Exactly. Whether it's drills or ways of explaining things or talking to each other, I try to take as much as I can from everybody. And I mean, I spent 4 or 5 years in a support role, and just being on ice with different people like Stacy or Dales or Dan, it was just good to learn from day one and see how they did things. So when I stepped in here, it was, you know, I still had a lot of things to work through, still do, but have a really good idea of how things go here. And I was well prepared from the start. So yeah, I'm a thief.
When on that note,
I haven't gone yet. I'm just gonna quickly. Coach to coach for me was when I started. If you remember, was COVID.
Yeah.
Right. So it was a little awkward. Right. We started, we got going, then we stopped. Right. So I was actually lucky. I was able to take a deep breath from when I was started, because I was just like, even though I coached for a long time, I'm just like, man, I don't know. Can I do these lessons plan? Can I make these plans? Right? Am I doing it right? Right? And if what Dan Hockenberg and Zach Daly, I mean, if it wasn't for them, and then Demmer helping me out too, it's just like I had one group to start. They just kind of gave me the room to breathe and grow and develop, right? And so it was nice actually over COVID because we started, maybe went for a month or two, and then we had to shut down and stop. So I get to reset and take a breath, and and then we were doing things off ice, and I was just like, oh man, is this what it's going to be all about?
Yeah,
Right? Because I'm like,
I've totally forgot about that.
You know,
That's really an odd way to start.
yeah, it was because we were shut down to school, and then we'd come in and do some workouts, right, with
That's right.
Heather and
Online workouts.
yeah, online workouts, and then we were doing cahoots.
God,
left
we're
and
trying
right.
to do whatever we could.
Yeah, whatever. So
Earn a
then all of a
friggin'
sudden,
paycheck.
we would be back on the ice, and we were allowed to go on the ice. And then I remember Clairview,
Yeah.
guys are hauling in the apartment. What are you guys doing on the ice? You're not allowed to be on the ice, right?
Yeah.
We just kept going, doing our business, right? Because we were allowed to at that point in time. So it was so different when I started, right? And then as time went on, that coach to coach, and we lost Dan. He moved on, and Zach moved on, right? It was like, I don't know, was it 3 years ago? And I was like, it was me at the end of the year, pretty much driving the Q van because those guys had gone, right?
Yeah,
I was like, I don't know if I can handle this right now anymore, right? Then there was talk about a couple new guys coming in, right? And these guys came in. I was kind of looking at them, coach to coach. I'm like, man, I'm like their dad, right? So I'm like, I don't even know how this relationship was gonna go, but you know what? They were like sponges. They just listened to everything that I could help them with, and it actually injected some youth and some energy into me too, which was nice to see. Because we could, I could pick at them more than they would pick at me, right? So, but that respect and that relationship was great, and then all of a sudden. Not all of a sudden, but we have this drill draw where we do our own drills because it's something we haven't talked about. But it's kind of funny because they would start to do it, then I would just take a little peek inside, see exactly what kind of drills are they doing here, right? But it's funny because your mindset is like what somebody thinks about one drill, somebody can add different pieces to that
Big
drill,
time.
and it's completely different. You're like,
Yeah.
man, I wish I didn't think about it, right?
Yeah.
And then I see like Nazi's starting to catch up to me with my drills,
Oh,
right?
big time.
And I've been taking a break for the last year and a bit, eh?
Yeah,
right?
I think he's caught
He's-
150.
Right. So, and I'm peeking at his, but it's a great relationship between us, where like you said, you're helping one another as much as you can. That respect factor is definitely there. And you can pick a little bit at each other, and that they know that you're not serious about it when you are picking at them. But when you do have a conversation with these guys too, if they're not having a great day or none of us have a great day, we know we can lean on one another too, right? And it's a nice a group here that we do have going, and I do appreciate that, like you said, because some days I did feel old, and injecting some youth back into me is kind of nice. But I do wish these guys would just not be sick as much. I really would appreciate that. Because 3 sessions a day on these feet it's a little tough, right? But no, all joking aside, like I said, I do really, like I said, appreciate it. And I do like the coach to teacher part of it too. It's it's been really good, and like you said, you've had to learn to give a little bit too,
Yeah.
where some days you just don't want to give a little bit, but you've learned to give a little bit with the teachers too. And like I said, to reiterate what Sean said, even with the support staff, I mean, they've been great, and they're learning as we go along too. But with our guidance from that coach to coach kind of thing, it really does help them too. And you see they're growing and developing and learning, because I'm sure at one point in time they'd probably like to be in this position too as a lead instructor, right? And they're working on developing that too.
The end.